Captain James Morrison had always prided himself on his unwavering composure. After 15 years of service with the Metropolitan Police Protection Unit, he had seen it all: assassination attempts, security breaches, public meltdowns, and family crises that would make front-page news if they ever leaked to the press. His steel-gray eyes had witnessed moments of vulnerability from some of the most powerful people in the world, yet he had never once allowed his professional mask to slip. The morning of September 15th started like any other Tuesday at Kensington Palace. James arrived at his post at precisely 6:30 a.m., his uniform pressed to perfection, his radio checked twice, and his mind focused solely on the day's security protocols. The Wales family was scheduled for a quiet day at home. No public engagements, no official visitors, just a rare opportunity for Prince William and Catherine to spend quality time with their children without the constant glare of media attention. As James conducted his routine morning sweep of the palace grounds, he noticed the gardeners had already begun their daily maintenance of the pristine lawns and flower beds. The autumn air carried a crisp freshness that reminded him of his childhood mornings in Yorkshire before duty and dedication had brought him to the heart of the British monarchy. He pushed the personal memories aside, as he always did, and continued his methodical inspection of the security perimeter. Inside the palace, the Wales children were beginning their morning routine. Prince George, now 10 years old, was already dressed in his school uniform, methodically organizing his books for the day ahead with the same careful attention to detail that characterized his father. Princess Charlotte, 8 years old and full of the spirited energy that had endeared her to the public during royal appearances, was having a more challenging start to her day. Catherine had noticed Charlotte moving slowly as she came down for breakfast, her usual bouncing enthusiasm replaced by careful, deliberate steps. When asked if everything was all right, Charlotte had simply nodded and smiled, not wanting to worry her mother. The young princess had inherited not only her mother's grace and her father's sense of duty, but also a stubborn independence that sometimes worked against her own best interests. James was stationed in the main corridor when he heard the first signs of distress. It was barely audible at first, a sharp intake of breath followed by a muffled whimper. His training immediately kicked in, and he moved silently toward the sound, his hand instinctively checking his radio, while his eyes scanned for any potential threats. The protection of the royal family wasn't just his job, it was his calling, his purpose, the driving force that had shaped every decision he had made for the past decade and a half. The sound came again, clearer this time, and James realized it was coming from the family's private breakfast room. Through years of experience, he had learned to distinguish between different types of distress calls: the panic of genuine danger, the frustration of minor inconveniences, and the pain of physical discomfort. This sound fell distinctly into the latter category, but it was coming from one of the children, which immediately elevated its priority in his mind. James positioned himself strategically where he could respond quickly if needed, while still maintaining the family's privacy. The breakfast room was supposed to be a sanctuary, one of the few places where the Wales family could interact naturally without the constant awareness of being observed and protected. He had spent countless hours stationed nearby during similar family moments, becoming an almost invisible guardian who witnessed the ordinary magic of their daily lives. Princess Catherine's voice drifted through the partially opened door, gentle but concerned. "Charlotte, sweetheart, you haven't touched your breakfast. Are you feeling unwell?" The concern in her tone was unmistakable, the voice of a mother who knew her child well enough to recognize when something was amiss. Charlotte's response was brave, but unconvincing. "I'm fine, Mummy. Just not very hungry this morning." James could hear the slight strain in her young voice, the effort it took to maintain her composure even in front of her own family. It reminded him of his own daughter, Emma, who at the same age had possessed the same stubborn determination to handle problems on her own. The comparison to his own family life was jarring. James had spent so many years compartmentalizing his roles: the devoted father who treasured every moment with his daughter, and the professional guardian who protected other people's children with equal dedication. The boundaries had always been clear and necessary, but in moments like this, the lines seemed to blur in ways that made his chest tighten with an emotion he couldn't quite name. Prince William's deeper voice joined the conversation, carrying the gentle authority that came naturally to him as both a father and a future king. "Charlotte, if you're not feeling well, it's important that you tell us. There's nothing brave about suffering in silence when people who love you can help." His words carried the weight of personal experience, years of learning to balance royal duty with human vulnerability. James found himself holding his breath, waiting for Charlotte's response. In his years of service, he had observed the whale's children growing up, watching them develop their individual personalities while learning to navigate the unique challenges of their birth. Charlotte, in particular, had always impressed him with her resilience and spirit, qualities that served her well during public appearances but might also lead her to downplay genuine problems. The silence stretched for what felt like minutes, but was probably only seconds. Then, Charlotte's voice broke through, smaller and more fragile than James had ever heard it. "My tummy hurts really, really badly, Daddy. It started yesterday, but I thought it would go away. It's getting worse, and I'm scared." The admission seemed to drain all the energy from her voice, leaving behind only the vulnerable honesty of a frightened child. James felt something shift inside his chest, a protective instinct that went beyond his professional training. This wasn't just any child. This was Charlotte, the little girl he had watched take her first public steps, who had waved shyly at cameras while clutching her mother's hand, who had shown such courage and poise during official events that she had won the hearts of an entire nation. The thought of her suffering in silence, trying to be brave when she should have been able to simply be a child, struck him in a way he hadn't expected. The conversation in the breakfast room became more urgent. Catherine's voice took on the efficient tone of a mother shifting into crisis mode. "How bad is the pain, sweetheart? Can you show Mummy where it hurts?" The questions were gentle but systematic, the natural response of someone who had learned to balance parental concern with practical action. Charlotte's next words sent a chill through James that had nothing to do with the cool morning air. "It feels like something is squeezing really hard inside my tummy, and it won't stop. When I try to stand up straight, it hurts even more. Mummy, am I going to be okay?" The fear in her voice was raw and unguarded, the kind of terror that only a child could express with such heartbreaking honesty. James found his hands clenched into fists at his sides, his professional composure fighting against an overwhelming urge to do something, anything, to help alleviate the little girl's suffering. He had faced down armed intruders and handled bomb threats with steady nerves, but the sound of a child in pain, especially this child, whom he had watched grow and develop over the years, was testing his emotional control in ways he had never experienced. William's voice became more decisive. "Right, that's enough waiting. Catherine, call Dr. Peterson immediately. I want Charlotte examined properly, and I don't care if we're being overly cautious. Better safe than sorry." The transformation in his tone was immediate and complete, from gentle father to decisive leader, making the kind of quick, authoritative decisions that would serve him well as a future monarch. James could hear movement in the room, chairs scraping, footsteps crossing the floor, the quiet efficiency of parents organizing themselves around their child's needs. His radio crackled softly with routine communications from other members of the security team, but the normal sounds of palace life seemed muted and distant compared to the drama unfolding just meters away from his position. Catherine's voice returned, steady but tight with controlled worry. "Dr. Peterson can be here within the hour, but he's suggesting we might want to consider taking her to the hospital for proper tests if the pain is as severe as she's describing. Appendicitis is always a possibility with children her age, and the symptoms match what she's experiencing." The word appendicitis hung in the air like a challenge, transforming what had been a concerning but manageable situation into something that could potentially be life-threatening if not addressed quickly. James felt his training kick into higher gear as he mentally began preparing for the possibility of an emergency medical transport, calculating routes to the nearest hospital and considering the security implications of an unplanned public appearance. Charlotte's response to her mother's explanation was immediate and heartbreaking. "Does that mean I have to go to the hospital? Will there be lots of people there? I don't want everyone to see me if I'm sick." Even in her pain and fear, she was thinking about the public attention that followed her family everywhere, the cameras and crowds that turned every private moment into a potential news story. The weight of her words settled over James like a heavy blanket. Here was an 8-year-old girl, frightened and in pain, but still concerned about how her illness might affect others or become a public spectacle. The maturity and consideration she showed, even in her vulnerable state, was both admirable and profoundly sad. No child should have to worry about such things, especially when dealing with their own physical suffering. William's response was immediate and firm. "Charlotte, sweetheart, your health is the only thing that matters right now. If you need to go to the hospital, then that's exactly where we'll go, and we'll make sure you're as comfortable and private as possible. The most important thing is getting you better, and everything else can wait." His words carried the absolute authority of a father whose child's well-being trumped all other considerations. James found himself nodding unconsciously at William's declaration, feeling a deep respect for the prince's immediate prioritization of his daughter's needs over any potential complications or inconveniences. It was exactly what any good father would say, but coming from someone whose every movement was scrutinized by the media and the public, it carried additional weight and meaning. As the minutes ticked by, James remained at his post, listening to the family navigate this crisis with the same grace and efficiency they brought to their public duties. Catherine coordinated with medical professionals, while William comforted Charlotte, their partnership evident even in this stressful situation. The love and concern in their voices was genuine and touching, a reminder that beneath all the titles and ceremonial roles, they were simply parents dealing with every parent's worst fear, the possibility that their child might be seriously ill. Charlotte's pain seemed to be intensifying. James could hear her breathing becoming more labored, punctuated by small sounds of discomfort that she was clearly trying to suppress. Her attempts to remain brave and composed, even in the face of increasing physical distress, were both admirable and heartbreaking to witness. "Mummy, it's getting worse," Charlotte finally admitted, her voice small and defeated. "I can't sit up properly anymore, and it hurts to breathe deeply. I'm really scared now." The admission of fear seemed to cost her significant effort, as if acknowledging her terror made it more real and immediate. James felt his professional detachment crumbling as he listened to the little girl's frightened confession. This was Princess Charlotte, the confident, spirited child he had watched grow up, reduced to a scared and hurting little girl who just wanted her parents to make everything better. The protective instincts that had driven him to this career suddenly felt personal in a way that was both powerful and unsettling. The sound of rapid footsteps announced Dr. Peterson's earlier-than-expected arrival. James straightened automatically as the palace's longtime family physician hurried past his position, medical bag in hand, and expression-focused. Dr. Peterson had been caring for the Wales family since before Charlotte's birth, and his presence brought a sense of professional competence that would help guide whatever decisions needed to be made. As the doctor entered the breakfast room, James caught a glimpse of the scene inside. Charlotte was curled up in her father's arms, her face pale and tight with pain, while Catherine hovered nearby with the controlled worry of a mother trying to stay calm for her child's sake. The sight hit James with unexpected force, driving home the reality that this was not just another security situation to be managed, but a family crisis unfolding in real time. In the pristine corridors of Kensington Palace, where every footstep echoes with centuries of tradition and every whisper carries the weight of the crown, a moment of raw human emotion shattered the carefully maintained facade of royal composure. What happens when a seasoned royal protection officer, trained to remain stoic in the face of any crisis, witnesses a young princess in genuine distress? This is the untold story of how one cry of pain from Princess Charlotte during a private family moment exposed the hidden struggles of those sworn to protect the royal family, and how it changed everything for Guard Captain James Morrison, a man who had dedicated his life to serving the crown but had never expected his own heart to become so deeply invested in the well-being of those he protected.